Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start because it's noon and oh, we've got, well, maybe I'll give everybody just a couple minutes. We've got Tiffany coming in. Hi, Tiffany. I was just explaining that I'm going to record the meeting, so you're welcome to keep your camera on or off, whatever you prefer. Also, you guys are all welcome to interrupt at any time and ask questions. So I have a lot that I like to cover in this meeting because as a residency instructor and as an instructor that teaches these research classes, I feel like I need to teach all of residency in 30 minutes for you guys so that you understand all this. So I'm going to record, get started, go through my list, but you stop and ask questions anytime, and then we'll leave some time at the end of the meeting for questions as well. But just
Okay.
a couple of things about me, aside from what you've already read in my bio. So I was a student at GCU in the doctoral program. And when I started the program, I told very few people I was in it. I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. I hadn't been to school for 15 years. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, so I just didn't know. And I ended up, wow, I ended up loving the coursework. And then when I got to the dissertation, it was really difficult for me. But there are so many more resources for you now, and they've changed the curriculum a lot. So it's a lot better than it was back then. So it shouldn't be as difficult. Also, I remember in my very first class, although I'm an avid reader, I remember raising my hand and saying, Dr. Greenberger, when I'm reading all these articles, they have all these citations, authors, names, dates that really impedes my reading. I really don't like those. And then I remember months later that I made that comment in public out loud and thought, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But then I thought months later, after that, I thought, you know what? That's how I felt back then. That's kind of how it is when, you're out of the education world and you come back in it. But I soon learned to really appreciate all those citations because everything we write is based on something that someone else said. So, anyhow, I would say in this class, it's not an easy class. And I really try hard to help you guys through this. What's really important in this class is that you get your problem space figured out, sorted out. And I'm going to give you some tools for that, and your core elements. So, those are two really important components of chapter one of residency, of they just that is that is what's going to be scrutinized the most. And so we want to work through those things as much as we can in this class. So therefore, I'm going to give you a lot of resources and a lot of help. And I suggest that every you start taking all those answers that I'm giving your classmates in DQs and putting them on a Word document because you may never get that information again. You may, but you may not. And it's all directly, well, not all of it, but much of it's directly related to what you need to write in your dissertation. So I would capture all that if I were you. Okay, let's talk a little bit, I think, about the assignments. I don't know if you saw that I just uploaded a assignment template yesterday because I realized the information I gave you in the first announcement wasn't really very good. So I thought I'd give you a template for all three of those assignments. So they're all together in one template that I uploaded yesterday in the announcements. So yesterday would have been 6/18/25. And let me see if I can pull that up now, and we'll just take a look at it together. There it is. Oh, so many things up on my screen. All right. Whoops, nope, don't want to do that. Okay, share my screen. Should be able to see the hippo from my safari, my bucket list trip that I went on last fall. All right. So here is what the assignment template looks like. Highly recommend that you use this for writing assignment one, two, and three, your three assignments. These correlate with what is required in Halo. It's just that I'm giving you some sentence starters and more information here. So first of all, I always tell my dissertation students before you write any sections of your dissertation and what you're writing in these assignments go directly into your dissertation. But I think it's better not to write in the actual big long dissertation just for these assignments. I would just I would just write, like, here's assignment one. I would just use this, copy and paste it, and make a document with a title page, and that would be your assignment one. I wouldn't submit the whole entire dissertation because this way I will give you comments on this. You can update your information based on my comments and then put it into your master copy. It's a lot easier, a lot shorter. But I always tell my dissertation students before you write any sections of your dissertation, you should go to the knowledge base. That's what we used with the older version 9 template. And you should go to the companion guide. That's currently what we're using for the version 10 template. So I don't know if you're aware, but we just switched over to a new template a few months ago, several months ago now, but we're still transitioning. There's a lot of good stuff in the knowledge base. So here are those links. So before any assignments, before any writing of anything in the dissertation, I would suggest you go to those areas of the companion guide and of the knowledge base and read up on it and then write your section. So assignment one is on the problem space, the problem statement. You've got to have the core elements table. So all of this goes into chapter one in your dissertation eventually. But I like this way of developing your problem space. It's a really solid, safe way to develop it. So first you're going to define the problem. You're going to, and this literature has to be current, has to be 5 years from when you graduate. So first you're going to define the problem. And I really like credentialing studies. That's what this is. When you give all the relevant information about the study in one or two sentences. So the credentialing is this part right here. So Ames conducted a qualitative descriptive study with 30 participants to investigate online learning and found X. All that is relevant. It's all the meat and potatoes, all in one or two sentences. So that's what I think you should do in this problem space section and other parts of your dissertation as well, but particularly in the problem space because it's so important. So anyhow, you would start this section with an intro sentence. The problem under investigation, so what you're studying, is X. And then give us a couple citations from the literature that tell us what the problem is. And then your synthesis sentence after you've written a couple citations is, according to the literature, it's known that. You're going to tell us what we know about what you want to study here. And then this part of the problem space, I think, is the most important part. This is where you are justifying to the reader and to everybody that reviews your work that you found a space in the literature. There's something missing and you are going to investigate it. Okay, so that's why this is so important. So you might want to start with a topic sentence. It doesn't have to be this exact topic sentence, but something similar to this. Several studies in the current literature show a need for the problem under investigation, for example, and then you give us some credentialed studies. I would recommend 3 credentialed studies for this section because this section is really important. And where you want to find this information for the justifying the problem section is at the end of articles where it says recommendations for future research. That's just a really safe, as I said, solid place to find information for justifying your problem space. So the recommendation for future research was another way you can do this is you can go to the limitations and you can say, based on the limitations of Jones's study, there is a need to study, and then whatever it is you're studying. So you could also base it on limitations rather than future recommendations. And then you want some sort of synthesis after you told us what was known in the literature and what is unknown in the literature. Then you want to kind of synthesize all that. What remains unknown in the literature is X, is what you just talked about up here in this paragraph. Therefore, the proposed study, so your study, will investigate X. So that's kind of how I would set up the problem space. If you go to residency and you have your problem space credentialed like this, they'll be very impressed. Okay, and now core elements table. So this is where you have to have your problem statement, your purpose statement, your research questions, phenomenon that you're studying. If you're qualitative, if you're quantitative rather than the phenomenon, I think you'll have to look in the dissertation template, but I think it's hypothesis instead, or maybe it's that key elements table. And then you're going to list your data sources. So if you're qualitative, your data sources are going to be interviews or focus groups or maybe journaling or looking through artifacts. But if you're quantitative, you're going, oh, also, oh, I guess, you know what? I'm seeing now that I just wrote this. Okay, so sorry. This part right here that I've highlighted is for the qual people. So, nope, that's wrong. Instrument would be for quant. Control X. Instrument should be over here by survey. B. Okay, so that's a little typo. But questionnaires are qualitative. So questionnaire is not a survey. For quantitative people, you have to find an actual survey, which we call an instrument. It has to be validated, it has to be reliable, has to be in English, and you can't change any of the questions. So you quantitative people have to look for that. There has to be survey questions for each of your variables that you're studying. But for qualitative people, you can create a questionnaire, which is different. You can create it yourself. It doesn't have to be valid and reliable. Be very short. You'll create it with open-ended questions, and you only have to get about 30 or 40 questionnaires returned. Whereas if you're quantitative and you distribute a survey, which is an instrument, you need to get typically upwards of 70 or 80 or sometimes even 100 returned, which can be tricky. And then your analytical approach, a lot of qualitative people will use Braun and Clark's reflexive thematic analysis, particularly for qualitative descriptive or case studies. For phenomenological or narrative, often you'll use a different approach for analyzing your data. And for you quantitative people, you've got to talk about how you're going to analyze your data. You're going to use MANOVAs, ANOVAs, regression analysis, multiple regression analysis. What's it going to be? So that's kind of what we're looking for there. Now, let's talk a little bit about what these core elements actually look like. So I have a little cheat sheet, and if you want to, I will put this in the classroom. But this is kind of showing you, here's some examples of how to write qualitative problem statements, quantitative problem statements. You use the word describe if you're using a descriptive study, but if you're conducting a case study, you use the word perceive. If you're conducting a narrative, you tell the story of. And if it's a phenomenological study, then describe lived experiences and made meaning from is how you say that. But it's basically the same formula. You just change those words. And then for quantitative, depending on if you're going to do correlational predictive, associative, or a comparative, this is how you'd word it. And then your X's are your variables. It is not known if and to what degree X predicts X. And then remember, for each of these variables, you have to have an instrument that's validated and reliable to measure those variables. So if we're talking about qualitative and quantitative studies, some practicalities are this. People say that it's easier to get into qualitative, but more difficult to get out of it. And what we mean by that is for qualitative, you can write your own interview questions. You can write your own questionnaire. You only have to get maybe 30 people to participate in your interviews and focus groups and whatever it is you're going to do. But it's difficult to get out of it because the data analysis is so much. You've got to think about how many words these people are going to give you when you interview them for 60 minutes. And then there's going to be 15 people or so, maybe that you're going to interview for 60 minutes. Think of how many words that is. You've got to code all of that and then theme it and then write about it. So that's what we mean there. Now, quantitative, we say it's the opposite, can be difficult to get into because you've got to find, as I said, an instrument, a survey to measure all your variables. Has to be valid, reliable, has to be in English, so probably created in the United States. Can't be too long, otherwise people are going to quit. You can't change any of the questions because then it's not valid and reliable anymore. You can use multiple surveys, so you don't have to have one survey that measures all of your variables, but if you have multiple surveys, if you're using 2 or 3, then they definitely can't be too long. So that's why it can be a little more difficult to get into, but easier to get out of because you can analyze your data in a day. There's these great tools that you can use. One is called Laird, Laerd. Highly recommend going to Laird if you're going to do quantitative. The other one is Intellectus. Both of those are on the homepage of the DC network, by the way. But anyhow, I wouldn't be scared of the data analysis because there are so many tools to help you with that. So those are kind of the practicalities that I like to explain to students as far as qual. Okay, so that takes care of our first assignment, right? And then and then also on that first assignment, Elicit is an AI tool. I'll show you how to find information about that if you're unfamiliar with it. All the students that are using Elicit love it for writing chapter 2, for finding, yes, I see Regina's, yeah, nodding her head. For writing chapter 2, for developing your problem space, for finding articles, all that. Really, really good. Dr. Mall's got a really good video on we used to call the problem space the gap then for many years, and then for many years it was the need, and now it's a problem space. So her videos, she talks about it as a gap. So it's a pretty old video, but still very relevant in many ways. And then Dr. Marquette, our assistant dean, he's got a video. So highly recommend you watch those. Okay. Oh, I know. So let's not go to assignment 2 yet. Let's stick with the core elements. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. So that's your problem statement, that's your problem space. Then your RQs are simply a cut and paste. They are so easy once you understand the cut and paste. So just look at this problem statement and look at the pattern. It is not known how novice K through 12 principals describe their instructional leadership preparation as it contributes to their defining of school goals, managing instructional programs, and promoting school climate. So all we do is we take this part and we cut and paste it, but we say how, and then we put the word do in here. See how, let's just go to RQ1, how do, and then it's all this stuff. How did the leadership contributes to defining school goals? And then the second RQ is managing instructional programs. And the last one is promoting school climate from the problem statement. See, it's just that. And then for the quantitative people, there's usually not nearly as many quantitative people in class. So I'm not going to go over this, but I'll just let you see it. It's just an RQ. It's also a cut and paste from your problem statement. And then you've got your hypothesis. The first hypothesis is your null hypothesis. There is no difference, or there is no, and then the second hypothesis is there is difference, or there is an association or a predictive correlation or whatever it is. So that's kind of the little cheat sheet. So I will put this in, you know where I'm probably going to put this is in DQ2 for this week, because I already got a cat in DQ1 and I want to pin this on the top so you don't miss it. And I can only pin one item. So I'm going to put this in DQ2. That's where it will be. Okay, so now let's go back to the assignment. So, oops. Okay, so now we know how to write our problem statement. About half of you haven't sent me your problem statements yet. I would like you to send them to me. It's okay if they're not polished, because that way I can help you before you have to do it in your assignment. Okay, but you know the problem statement starts with it is not known, and then if you're qualitative, how whoever your participants are, how teachers, how middle managers, how somebody describe or whatever, and then what it is you're studying. And then the purpose statement is easy. All we do is say the purpose of this, and then you say whether you're qual or quant, and then the type of design. Purpose of this qualitative descriptive study, the purpose of this qualitative case study, like that. Something I'll tell you about designs. Case study, you need 3 sources of data. So that means you would need interviews, maybe focus groups, maybe a questionnaire, or maybe journaling or observations or something, but 3. For qualitative descriptive, a lot of students select that design because you only need one source, only need interviews. You need to do more interviews, but you only need interviews. So you need to get, I think, a minimum of 20 interviews of approximately 60 minutes. But for that reason, a lot of students will choose qualitative descriptive because it's just less complicated and it's less information data to organize. The thing about qualitative descriptive is you have to be studying something that's kind of new that we don't know a lot about yet, but that's probably fine. Okay, now we know how to do the research questions, right? It's just copy and paste. The phenomenon is if you were to draw a picture of what you're studying, what would it be? It's kind of like your problem statement, but a little bit more. Like I would say maybe two sentences. If you're sitting down with your girlfriend, you're having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and they ask you what your study's about, this is what you're going to say your participants are going to tell you about. Okay, so data sources, we already talked about that. Okay, so that's assignment one. Assignment two is mainly about your theory. So I think the easiest way to find a theory these days, go to your problem statement, and then let's just take one as an example. Let's take this one. No, let's take this one and highlight the keywords in your problem statement. So our keywords are principles and their instructional leadership preparation and all these things. One, two, three. I would take this and I would put it into AI. ChatGPT is free, Claude is free, and I would say, I'm a dissertation student. Here is my problem statement. This is what my research is on. Please suggest theories and or models that align with the keywords in my problem statement, and then see what you get. Now, it doesn't mean that they're right, but if ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or one of those AI tools gives you a list of 6 or 7 theories and or models, then you can go research them and decide which one aligns with your study. So you kind of want to look for something that aligns with the keywords in your study. One is fine. One theory or model is fine. It's better if you can get away with one because it's easier. It's less complex. Sometimes you can't though. Sometimes you just can't find one theory that covers all your keywords in your problem statement. So that in that case, you might have to find two. But anyhow, so let's say you've got your theory. So all you need to do is if you're quantitative, well, both. First, you name your theory or model, then you describe it, just a couple sentences, explain how it relates to your study, couple sentences. And then if you're quantitative, you want to explain how it defines the research questions and variables, because that's kind of what we do for quantitative studies as far as our theory goes. Also, for those of you who are quant, once you find your instrument, your survey, then you want to do some detective work and find out what theory or model they use to develop that instrument. Usually there's one. And then that's what you want to use as your theory or model. For qualitative studies, again, you want to name your theory or model, describe it, explain how it relates to your study, and then explain how it relates to the phenomenon and research questions that you're studying. And in assignment 2, you are again going to post your core elements table, but you're going to update based on any feedback I gave you on the first assignment. Okay, so that's assignment 1. That's assignment 2. And assignment 3 is the one on methodology. So this is where you just say a qualitative. So in the methodology assignment and in chapter 1, you have to do, there are 3 components. First, explain what methodology you're using, either qualitative or quantitative. And then explain why the other one's not suited for your study. So that's 2 paragraphs right there. Third paragraph is what design are you going to use? You don't have to explain why the other designs are not appropriate for your study. You had to do that in the old template, but you don't have to do it anymore. So try to make it a little bit shorter. So your first paragraph could start, a qualitative methodology is suited for the proposed study because. And then your second paragraph could be, a quantitative methodology is not the best choice for the proposed study because. And then the last paragraph, an X design is appropriate for the current study because. And this will go eventually right into your dissertation. So any questions? I know that's a lot of talking. Any questions on that? Okay, I know you probably need some time just to absorb it. So let me look at my list and see what else is on my list. Things to be sure to talk about.
I have a question, but it's
Sure.
regarding the AI, what you said to take the words and then put it. How do we find, or where do we find that um, the the um, the website that we can use
Ah,
to?
that's a great question. So let me
Can I
just,
just say, I use ChatGPT for work a lot,
hmm
and I actually have the app on my phone.
me too.
So I put a lot of my dissertation questions in there, and it's really helped me, especially in the beginning, to really form a better understanding of where I'm going with it. So the app is really helpful because if you sign in, it will save your past questions, so you can kind of refer back if you wanted to do that.
Yes, fabulous. Yeah, it was
You
funny.
can put it right into your URL too if you don't want to put an app on your phone.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's chat. I'm
So
sorry.
you can just Google chat, ChatGPT, and it'll bring you right to it. But it comes from openai.com. And you can sign up for free and you can get a lot of good information for free. I actually pay the $20 a month, and that way I can upload a picture even on my phone. And if my husband's fixing something and he needs a part or he needs to understand something, I can upload a picture and I can say, please explain what this is. Please explain how to fix this, whatever. It's just the more you have it in front of your mind, the more you'll use it in your daily life as well as in your dissertation. So
All
and
right,
while we're,
thank.
yeah, sure. While we're talking about AI, I'm going to show you on the DC network where you can go to find out more about AI. But I'm a big proponent of AI as long as you use it ethically. So what that means is you can use it to understand something, to have to have it explain something to you. You can use it to summarize articles for you. You can use it to help you organize your thoughts, your papers. You can't use it to copy and paste. You can't use it as a replacement for you doing your own work. And I'll show you kind of where to find all that on the DC network. But I use ChatGPT a lot. A lot of my colleagues like Claude, Claude, better for writing than ChatGPT. You can also use these tools to help you edit your work, not to write your work for you, but to help you edit it. Um, Elicit, I already mentioned that one. That's a really good one for writing chapter two. My other favorite free AI tool of the year is Google LM Notebooks. You can go there. So the problem with ChatGPT and Claude and some of those is you can ask it some questions and sometimes it hallucinates and makes up information. It gives you something that's not true. It can even give you a false citation. So unless you actually look up the citation, you don't know if it's just making something up. But in Google LM Notebook, you upload information. And so then if it gives you, if it asks, it's a great for organizing research and everything, and it will only use what you've uploaded. So you know that what you're getting back is truthful. Now, this is hard to explain how cool it is, but if you upload some PDFs, for example, which is what I did, I picked a paper that some colleagues and I had published, and I uploaded it. And within minutes, it created a podcast for me of two people talking to each other. The podcast was informative, it was engaging, it was professional. And I think this would be a great way for you to listen to rather than reading papers all the time. If you're in your car, if you're on a plane, you could just listen to these papers that you have to read, maybe not all of them, listen for a little while and say, is this something that I should read later or not? But anyhow, that those are some of my favorites. Sometimes I'll use it when I'm working with problem statements. I'll say, please help me make this problem statement more robust. Please help me refine this problem statement. Please give me ideas of how to add to this problem statement. So you can use it for all kinds of things, but I do like having it on my phone also, as Tiffany mentioned. Okay, so back to a couple practical suggestions. So we were talking about qualitative versus quantitative. Another thing is recruitment. You really, now you're in research class two, you really need to think about who you are going to recruit and how you're going to recruit them. So those are the people that you're going to interview or distribute surveys to. And it's really difficult to recruit, to get permission to recruit at any colleges or universities. It's really difficult to recruit high-level managers because they're too busy. They're probably not going to say yes to giving you an hour of their time they don't even know you or care about your study. So you have to think about who can you recruit that you can access. So associations, organizations, churches, those are all people will probably let you recruit there. You have to find the gatekeeper who's in charge and ask them for permission. When the time is right, I'm a dissertation student, I'm studying this. Can I distribute a survey to your database? Or will you um, distribute this email for me when the time is right, when I get approval, asking because I want to interview participants. Also, as far as, so that's a feasibility thing that you need to be thinking of now. Who are you going to recruit? How are you going to access them? Who's going to give you permission to access them? Another thing to think about is feasibility, and I didn't notice it with this class, but yet I haven't seen everyone's problem statements. But vulnerable populations and sensitive topics can also be very difficult as far as incorporating that into your study because it takes a lot longer to get through IRB. Therefore, it's going to cost you more money because you're going to have to be in class longer. So I always tell students to think about avoiding vulnerable populations or sensitive topics. So for example, let's say, so a vulnerable population would be a child, someone under 18. So rather than interviewing children, interview their teachers or their parents. Somebody with a substance abuse problem is a vulnerable population. Rather than interviewing them, interview their counselors or family members or something else. So there's a lot of ways to get around that. Okay. I also said I would talk a little bit about residency. So, Holly, Regina, Tiffany, have you guys been to residency one?
No.
No, mine
Okay.
is in October.
Okay. So I just taught residency one and I taught residency two, and it's changed recently. But what they're doing now is they are having you write portions of chapter one and portions of chapter three and create a PowerPoint, which is your PowerPoint is your outline of chapter one, and then you present it at the end of the week. So on Thursday afternoon, some students present on Friday mornings, some students present. But if you want to know more details about exactly what residency is going to look like, and if you want to look ahead at the materials, I highly encourage you to do that. And I'll show you where you can do that find that on the DC Network. We'll do a little DC Network tour. There's a lot of one-on-one time working with your instructor during residency. So it's a classroom situation. So you might have about 20 students. Oftentimes there'll be two instructors and we'll split the class. I'll take half, the other instructor will take half. There'll be some group learning, and then we just break off into groups and we help you with your study individually all week. So you get a lot of really, really helpful instruction at residency. Many students feel a little intimidating going in, and then by Friday, they are so happy and they've made good friends and everybody there understands what they're going through. And so it's okay if you feel a little intimidated in the beginning. That's natural, but it's a lot of work. You'll probably feel pretty worn out, but you will grow so much and your study will be so good at the end of that week if you go in with a strong study to begin with. Okay, so that's that. So let me take you on a little tour of the DC network real quick. Share. Okay, and first of all, this is what ChatGPT looks like. So you can just ask your question here, and that's what it looks like. If you go into your settings over here, you can tell ChatGPT what kind of responses you want. I tell it, when appropriate, give me responses in bullet points because that makes it a lot faster for me to read. I say I want an informal tone. I don't want any passive writing, things like that. You can give it all those cues. But let's go to the home page of the DC network. Do not sleep on the DC network. Almost everything you need to write your dissertation is in here. So I love that they made this part really big. This used to be off to a corner, but I highly recommend that you start attending some of these meetings. The more of these meetings you can attend and just listen, the more you'll understand what the dissertation expectations are. So look, library, how to write APA style. AI office hours. If you don't know a lot about AI, if you're interested in learning more about AI, beginner's dissertation. I don't know anything about that, but if I was in research two class, I would go. This DC cohort, this is the only meetings for doctoral learners by doctoral learners, and they record their meetings. So oh, I want to show you this too. So let's say I click on the DC cohort. I want to find out more about it. Do you see down here where the follow button is? You want to select follow, and then anytime they send out an email saying, here's a recording of our last meeting, or here's some information about our upcoming meeting, you will get that email. So anything here that you're interested in, anything on the DC network, if there's a follow button, it's always on the left corner, bottom corner, click the follow button. IRB office hours, if you want to know what's acceptable as far as vulnerable populations, sensitive topics, that's IRB. Form and format, if you want to start learning right away how to format correctly in your dissertation, you could go to that. Highly recommend qualitative research consultant hours or quantitative, depending on what you're studying. So highly recommend all of these. Then if you go over here to dissertation resources, dissertation homepage, that's where a lot of good stuff is for you. Finding a content expert, you don't need to worry about that yet, but eventually dissertation milestone guide, you want to know what the expectations are. If you just go down here and let's say you want to know let's go to year 3, because that's when you start the dissertation. Year 3 and beyond. You click around, haha, here it is. Here's your year 1, year 2, here's what year 3 looks like. So that's how I'm going through this quickly because we're going to run out of time. So then, let's go back to dissertation resources, homepage. This is dissertation template. This is where you find the dissertation template that you're going to be working in. Helpful videos and PowerPoint. That's all good stuff, but let's go back to the home page. Software. This is where I was telling you, here's Laird, here's Intellectus. Those are both quantitative, sorry. This is a knowledge base from the older template, but highly recommend going there. Really, really good information. And the more you click around on the DC network, the more you're going to learn. So here's residency. If you want to learn more about residency, go to the residency homepage and you just start exploring how to, she was in my class, how to learn about residency 1, you would click here. Okay, so back to the homepage. Open some videos, click links. AI Skills Lab. So you want to learn more about AI? Here's where you go. And the good, so I used to be on this committee. See if oh, no, they took my picture down. I had to quit after a while. We had a crazy year. But anyhow, I was on this when we started this page. So the good places are getting started with AI. This is my video on how to get started with AI if you haven't, if you don't know much about it. And then this AI prompts library and lessons, just start exploring around here. There's so many good tools. You'll be amazed. Really good stuff there. And let's see if there's anything else that's really important that I missed. That's about it, the DC network, I think. Questions, comments. What can I do to help?
So for the paper, for
Yes.
assignment 1, we don't have to turn in like the whole dissertation, just maybe do a Microsoft Word and put like assignment 1 kind of like APA style.
Exactly right. And please include a title page. And the same goes for assignment 2 and 3. I just think it's a lot easier for you if you don't upload the whole dissertation. That way I'll give you feedback on assignments 1, 2, and 3. You can adjust accordingly and then put it into your master copy or however you want to do it. And
Okay.
at residency, some people will have when you're writing it, so I think it's at the end of residency when you get home, you have an assignment. And some residency instructors will have you upload the whole dissertation. And I always give my students a template. So some of us have students work in the whole template and some give our students a template. Everybody's a little different.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, good question. Okay, that's it. Easy peasy. I'm going to stop recording.